This will be our last webinar for 2022. Give everybody a little bit of break with the holidays in December, and we'll start again in January. In January, we are going to do a webinar on the decriminalization legalization narrative and just give some information there about the different sides of the debate and the different models that people are proposing. So really focusing around discussing what does it mean to serve survivors who have dissociative identity disorder, and what does it mean to walk alongside them in the best way that we can. I'm going to go ahead and introduce everyone while we're doing this, starting with Michelle. That's the correct way?
That's correct. Good job.
Okay. Michelle Worthing. So Michelle is a licensed professional counselor. She specializes in treating PTSD and complex PTSD. She is a survivor or overcomer of complex PTSD. She's owned Lighthouse Counseling since 2008. So that's crazy to me that 2008 was so long ago. But for a while now, and she contracts with Free Kind Virginia and Survivor Ventures, one of our partner programs in Virginia, in her work with sex trafficking survivors, along with many other organizations to provide health services. And she is just an excellent nurse on this specific condition and hosts support groups for people with dissociative identity disorder, and has her hands really deep in walking alongside survivors who are living with DID. So we're really just honored to have you here as well. Julie Schrader has become a good partner of ours, of her organization. I feel like we could keep it open just in the referrals that we that we have the desire to send over. And so she's the founder and CEO of Rejuvenating Women and the Future Restored Wings Ranch for Kids. They're in Nebraska. Is that right?
Yep, in the heart of Nebraska.
Let's get those middle states. Julie is a survivor in her own right, a survivor of sexual exploitation, abuse, and domestic violence. And she really focuses in her home on members who have that complex trauma, and are one of the programs that we tend to run to when we are working with a survivor who's living with DID. And she also works to raise awareness and trains on all forms of human trafficking and SRA. So we're not going to focus on SRA today, but if you are focusing on DID, you likely have had a lot of conversations around SRA, and these three panelists also are an excellent resource for that as well. So keep in mind, Kimberly Cohen is another woman who's doing just incredible trainings on this issue. She's president and founder of the Healing Center for Complex Trauma. She's an advocate, an educator, a consultant, a leader, a mother, a grandmother. That is just crazy to me that you could possibly be a grandmother looking at you. She works directly with survivors of trafficking, SRA, torture, domestic violence, and the providers of service. And she is an active member of the Utah Trafficking in Persons Task Force, of the University of Utah Gender-Based Violence Consortium, the National Survivor Network, and the National Leadership Institute, and has just had the wonderful honor of training many organizations and task forces and coalitions and many others. And so again, we're just super excited to have all of you guys here. And for those who are joining us, our panelists graciously agreed to extend the webinar by 15 minutes to ensure that we have time for question and answer, because we know that this topic is one that brings a lot of questions. And so the question and answer portion of the webinar is open. You can write your questions there at the bottom. There's a Q&A portion. You can write them in. And those ones that are more broad, that will really be applicable to probably everyone that's on this call as an attendee, we'll try and answer on here. And anything that's maybe more case specific or circumstance specific, I'll gather those and send them to our panelists after the fact so that they can give you any input if they desire to answer that. But they really wanted to make sure that you had the chance to do some question and answer, because this is obviously a heavy content that we want to make sure that we just have all of the time for all of the things that we want to have answered here. And so I am just going to start to jump in. And I think while we want to focus this webinar mostly on how do we walk alongside individuals, we do need to define what DID is and by what it is not, and what maybe some of those misconceptions on what dissociative identity disorder is. So I want to take a minute and punt to our panelists and just say, what is dissociative identity disorder and what is it not? And anyone who wants to start that can feel free.
I'll start. Dissociative identity disorder for one, it's a miracle. It's like your brain, it is just a talent, and your brain is a use-dependent organ. And as its entire purpose is survival, it figures out what it needs to do, including to not be present in or not remember certain situations. We all do that. We all show up at work one way. We all parent a different way. We show up for lunch with our girlfriends or our guy friends, and we're different people in different circumstances. But in the case of trauma, torture, that has to go to extreme levels. And because it is so perpetual, ongoing, compounded, it becomes a use-dependent thing, and your brain locks it in. It becomes very solidified instead of fluid. And there are different dissociative disorders, such as dissociative amnesia and depersonalization, derealization. They can look a little similar, but they're not. Sometimes there's amnesia between parts and people don't remember. That's really common when you're talking to someone who has DID, or when what you hear about, oh, I don't remember doing that. That wasn't me. There's no way that was me. Versus sometimes there's influence. Like I could say, like when you're driving in a freeway and a car kind of pushes into you and you push over a little, some parts kind of work like that. It's not a malicious result of trauma. There can be maliciousness in parts for survival, but it is in many ways a benevolent gift from God for our brain to go into that extra space that most people don't get to go into. And I'm glad we're doing this, because the media, the stories that are out there about DID are not kind generally, and they're not even. Yeah. And another thing is, if the trauma doesn't start really at birth in those first few years, something like The Bourne Ultimatum, which I actually like those movies, someone cannot create, or they can't become DID once their brain is formed, once the neural pathways have locked in the map of the world. So it is in those formative years, those first few 2-3 years, where the brain is figuring out survival, that the dissociation becomes magnified and really able to be utilized on that level. So it's a time-sensitive thing as well as a trauma. It's impacted. And
one of the ways I actually differentiate it from borderline personality disorder, for example, which is often linked off, is that I think my theory is that what happens with borderline is that it's too late to do that process. And so people that develop borderline personality disorder have all of the same reactive attachment, lots of similar trauma, but they aren't able to pull apart and dissociate from the experience. So there are some dissociative features to borderline, but not the same as the ability to shut that out. And so the appearance of it looks different. Now, often parts will often look borderline in and of themselves, but the whole self isn't. And that's one of the, it's almost sadder, in my opinion, to have it delayed to the place where you can't put it aside, because I functioned so well all the way up until I didn't.
Yeah.
Just same for me. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Does
So
anyone
nobody would have known. So one of the myths is that people think, oh, you would know. No, you wouldn't. I was married for 10 years. My husband didn't know, and I didn't know. And if I don't know, how can anybody else know? And so there are clues often, but most of those clues are recognized in the retrospect, not in the present of it.
And a lot of those clues, especially because we're doing this, people are going to now be aware of maybe what some of the signs are. Yeah. I had really erratic behavior. I didn't remember things. I was very suicidal, but then I would say, I've never thought of suicide in my life. And people are like, what are you talking about? We just had to go and find you. You don't know because you don't know. It's blocked off for your survival. And also I was thinking the other day, like how to relate this. As a mom, as someone who has to show up, if something really traumatic happens and there's your child crying, maybe there's a death, maybe there's just, you're in an accident, and you have to put that over there. you have got to show up, you have to be mom, you have to take care of things. And then later, when everything's all right, then it's the shaking, crying shock that sets in. All can do it. We all do it because it's necessary. People who become DID just do it on an extra level. And it's habit. They're not conscious of it. We're not conscious of it until we are. And I love that until you were fine until you weren't. Does everyone have a complete breakdown of?
Yep.
Ah,
Yeah, totally. I love that. I think also, and on that, and I love what you were saying on that, Kimberly, because that is something I've always believed since I've learned about DID and what it is, that it is like, it is God's way of protecting the person. It is a God-given, like you said, it's a miracle. It's a blessing from the Lord, I believe. And when you said that, Kimberly, it was like, wow, because I've really witnessed the, actually the incredible even growth from survivors who have DID, that because of that, they're able to excel in other areas in their life that they didn't even know they could excel in. And one thing that I want to say, which is a myth that a lot of people have, and I'll say one of the culprits to this myth, I think, are law enforcement officers. And you even have some of your social workers and other people in human services, is that they just deem these people as crazy. And when I started learning about this, and I took offense to that, because I myself have not DID, but as you were saying, the borderline disorder, that I discovered probably 7 years ago, actually. It's not, I want to educate people that this is not a matter of being crazy. It's not a matter of the homeless person is there because they're crazy or they're this or they're that. And what people don't understand is in a lot of cases, it's totally misdiagnosed. It's not even, people don't even address it. And then when it is diagnosed, they don't know how to counsel on it. They don't know how to treat it with medication or holistically. And so people suffer from it without being helped properly. And that, to me, it hurts my heart, actually, because that is a lot of the stories that we have of the women that have come to our program that have DID. And that is a lot of their story. And I just feel terrible because they weren't treated the best because of it.
What's interesting too is how different people in the same family can develop different things. So somebody asked about timing. Typically it's 5 or under. There is a little window of squishiness in that between 5 and 8. So some people, there's that space. So DID, my older brother, schizophrenic, and my little brother, bipolar. And then I have 3 other brothers that have all kinds of other things going on. So raising the 3 of us that I'm talking about, were raised in the same family structure. I didn't know the others, but there's the ramifications of trauma went in different directions. And so the only thing people will ask me, well, what's the difference between like you, DID, and your brother developing schizophrenia? Well, first of all, I think my brother actually does have DID. However, he started using drugs at 9 years old. And so you pass that on for the next 35, however long, like something else changed and it altered the course of his brain structure. And so there are certain pieces in there that start to shift. Somebody mentioned, and why even schizophrenia and DID, it's not the same, but there's connection points. And there's connection points to bipolar, and there's connection points to borderline. It's why as a therapist, it's really hard to pull apart what it is. Yeah. And I'm just like, it's all trauma. Let's just deal with the trauma, and then we'll look at what's underneath it later. Let's do the trauma, and we'll get to the other stuff later.
Exactly.
And another point to that is we're all built differently, have different strengths. I'm an artist. I'm very creative. I think dissociation would naturally come to me. Some people aren't. In my case with SRA, victims were chosen based on their ability to dissociate. If they could be brutalized and then the next day appear fairly normal, that was a good victim for them. The ones that did not recover, they were left alone because they couldn't hide the abuse as well. So we're all predisposed to be really pleasant and sunshiny or kind of stormy. We all have our characteristics that go into the creation of DID, and we're all different. And so just because you understand one person's system, their kind of network of parts, doesn't mean you're going to get it for the next one. And generally, as you said, like understanding it is trauma, it's better to focus on the what happened to you? Do you want to tell me what happened instead of who are you? Let me write this down. Let me track all of these parts. I gave that up years ago. Some people have really organized system. Mine is just put in the blender and it's just atomic bomb all over the place, just too many. And they don't want to be known necessarily. So it's been a healthier thing to say, can you tell me what happened? And what do you need? Like, how are you protecting Kim? How are you helping her be safe?
And how can I help you do that in the most effective ways?
Yeah. And the misdiagnosing, gag. I've been called borderline. I've been called everything.
On the average age of diagnosis, so everybody knows too, is in middle 30s. And so a lot of people are exposed to all kinds of mental health people long before they get an official diagnosis, because even in our field, there's still people would rather diagnose you with schizophrenia than actually deal with the DID.
Yeah.
And to be truthful, we'd rather be diagnosed with schizophrenia than remember our past that caused. We'd rather have something that someone. It's just, I've been in mental institutions a lot. I've also worked in mental institutions, and just the feelings of people when they say certain diagnoses, borderline, they're automatically off. The last time I was in a hospital and I was having flashbacks, which was 2 years ago, I said, can we talk about this? You know, what I need, which was really talk to me, tell me where I am. They wouldn't even listen to me. They said, we're not a therapeutic environment. We can medicate you, sedate you, or restrain you. Those were my 3 options. They were reiterated over and over again. So when you have trauma, you have DID, it's compounding the issue.
Yep.
I literally teach people how to work with trauma, and I don't have a voice. I couldn't even stand it. So I got out of there as fast as I possibly could. But in 2021, those are your options for a trauma response.
Yeah, and that's why we also, so one of the things thinking about what we can do is I work extremely hard to never put a survivor in the hospital. I work extremely hard in a field that mandates certain things.
Yeah.
And so one of the things is I'm like, help me help you not put you in a hospital.
Yeah.
So whatever contracts we need to do, whatever resources we need to put in, what do we need? Because the hospital is not the place for DID. Is it absolutely necessary at times? Yes. Is it absolutely not useful most of the time? Yes.
We need a specialized.
We definitely do. But that brings me to the next question. And Kimberly, you brought it around in exactly with what you were saying with the interactions that were unhelpful. What interactions, what do helpful interactions look like when serving survivors with DID? And then again, maybe what points are unhelpful, but how do we interact? What questions are appropriate? What questions are not relevant? How do we continue to just be in community while we're serving people who are living with DID?
Obviously, survivors, they're in a high state of need, but they're also incredibly strong. So there's a resiliency and a power that got them here. And Father Greg Boyle, if you haven't read Tattoos on the Heart, please do.
What's it called?
Watch Tattoos on the Heart.
Okay.
He's just very gracious, and he blurs the lines between them and me, puts everyone as equals and there but by the grace of God. If you're standing there with your hands on your hips, to a survivor in your place of authority or, your title, that is a powerful position. It's scary to the survivor.
And first
They
of
are
all,
so
we
needy.
have the authority on their life.
What?
It's not our life. We don't have the authority on their life. It's not
Right.
our life.
No,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Been submissive your entire life. That power position can seem intimidating. So really getting on the level of the person, seeing them as people, as not label. I hate the term survivor, but apparently that's how people know what I am. I hate it. I hate it because I'm Kim. I'm a million things.
Yes.
But when I was in the hospital where I once worked, also, I worked after. It just goes all over the place. But little team there that wasn't equipped for this, they said, there's a need. Let's figure this out. Because I was having so many flashbacks. They would just gather and they say, what do you need to say? What do you need to say? They'd keep me safe. And once stories come to the light, once that need or that wound is in the light and receive some love, suddenly the power of it starts to dissipate. Like joining them in the story, not demanding they reach a bar, but being where they are, seeing them as a person of value, doing what it takes, which can be so many things. And I'll stop for a second.
Presence is really, like, when I talk to my clinicians a lot, the most powerful thing we do in the room is regulate our own.
Yes.
It's literally the most therapeutic thing you can do is when you are regulated, you present regulation to the other person in the space. And this is why the science behind it. The electromagnetic field around our skull is about 1 inch around our skull. The electromagnetic field from our heart is 3, 6, 12 feet, depending on.
Oh, I didn't even know
calming
that.
our own body system down, when our own body system is regulated, we are putting that into the space. And we all know it. Like, you walk into a space, you're like, whoa, what did I just walk into?
Yeah.
It's electromagnetic connection. It's our connection. It's our human to human connection. It's something God gave us. It's something of who he is. It's something of who he is and how we connect to each other. And so it's that whole, if mom ain't happy, nobody happy. So if you're walking into a space with your own crap going on, you're bringing that into space. And so one of the number one, I love the book of Job. His friends were great until they opened their mouth. Like, sometimes it's just being safe.
Yeah.
Safe and present. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I was, sorry.
No, go.
I was going to mention that too. And I've had to make sure that our staff in the house are always in that mode of listening. We're there to listen. We're not there to give our opinion. We're not there to tell them they were trafficked. We're not there to tell them they have DID. We're not there to tell them about them, like you were saying. And our job is to listen. And sometimes what I have found is that a staff will have a really bad day. They will have their own issues going on, whether it's a divorce, whatever. And they bring that in there, and it, even when they're covering it up, it completely shows through. And what it comes off as sometimes is that she doesn't care about me. She doesn't care about anything going on with me. And this is about me. And honestly, I teach staff all the time, this isn't about you. You are not here in this home for your own gratification needs or agenda. You are here for the survivor, for the woman who is in this home right now, and they come first before yourself. And we've lost staff, and we've had a turnover of staff because it's hard to find the staff that don't want to make it about them or that they're trying to fix them. I love how you mentioned that. Just us being quiet, not asking them questions. That's none of our business. Don't ask them what happened to you. Tell me your story in a way that's honestly, it's for the therapist. It's maybe for a program manager. It's not, I don't want our staff going in and saying, tell me your story.
Yeah, we train in a free kind. We train the advocates not to really talk about their stories, to help them go, that's a space for therapy. Now, there are pieces maybe like in friendship, as you get to know people, that you might share some of it, but we want to teach them how to methodically even share their story for the sake of their own, so they're not victimizing themselves.
Yes.
It becomes voyeuristic.
Yes.
Asking.
That's exactly.
Because it's sensational.
That's something that you all brought up in the pre-call that I thought was really interesting, as somebody who, with one specific like survivor sister of mine that I've been really close to for the last 2 years, who has just graciously taught me so much about living with DID and been so wonderfully open. That you all brought up was that when those parts present, when different parts present, that it isn't our job and it isn't necessary for us to be, who am I talking to? Why are you here? What is your purpose? All those things, which I think was so important for our attendees to know, because I didn't know that. Like, I'm just somebody, I didn't know, like, I don't live with dissociative identity disorder. So to me, this is something new, and I'm trying to know, how do I support my friend, and how, like, my friend is acting different today. This is definitely not the person that I have known and worked with the last 3 weeks. And so in being just naive in it, And I never want to cause more harm. And I know that our attendees feel the same way. And so that was a point that you all brought up that I thought was really important, because of course I noticed, oh my gosh, I do that all the time. Is who is this?
We all have. I've been doing this for 17 years. So what I know is from 17 years of messing it up and fixing it and messing it up and fixing it up and fixing it.
And it's important to know that we're all human. And when we screw up, say, you know what, I absolutely could have handled that better. Will you let me keep trying? And I didn't see that. The signs were there. I could have caught that, but I didn't. Can I try again? But just admitting our humanity. A lot of therapists, I think, burn out, stop the work because trained, they know how to do this. You're not responding. So it must be your fault. Like you aren't doing the work. Some therapists have a savior complex. I'm going to do this. I'm just going to be a hero. And the hero really is the survivor. They're going to do it. They're going to do the work.
Yeah, I tell my staff, no capes. Nobody has a cape here. Take the cape off.
Yeah.
That's
And it's
good.
hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. And acknowledging that it's hard. Honesty is the most important thing, I think. Honesty and love. Someone mentioned love. And when I talk about therapeutic techniques, love them. Just love them. Love them. And it's not in the DSM. It's not in any college or university course to love them. And it sounds wrong when you have a PhD or an LCSW behind your name, when you have to have boundaries and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But they haven't been loved. And love heals. It absolutely heals. It is the balm. And so when we show up in love, then we also show up in grace, in humility, and it's allowing them to teach us what we need. That's my people. I call them my angels. They just hold space. They hold space with me.
My favorite don'ts to teach on is, and we've talked about faith a few times here, so I'm going to spit this one out really clearly, is do not defend God. If you believe in a God that is all powerful, he is big enough to defend himself. He does not need you to do that for him. And it's not your job. And we need to be really pissed off at God and to work that out with our maker in a safe way and not be told that's bad.
And in my case, where it was a lot of ritualistic abuse, so abuse related to God, where he was, I need to sort that out. By someone showing up in love, they're representing him, and I'm seeing him in a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm referencing him in this time and space now. But if someone tells me, oh no, don't tell me anything. So
We say so much more in silence than we do with our words.
it's not Mother Teresa, it's someone else. At all times, preach the gospel. And
It's
when
necessary, use words.
Yes, that's it. Yep.
And it's that energy you're talking about. It's like you can feel when someone just sucks the energy and the light out of the room, and you can feel when someone just shows up and you're like, oh my gosh, who are you? And I want to get to know you.
Totally.
Yeah.
And with your point of not knowing how to navigate, oh, bless my friends that are so close to me, that the changes can be really abrupt. It is so clear someone else is here right now. And sometimes, again, it's an influence. And my friends, when they notice, it's okay, let's take a minute. What do you need? It's very complicated to work through. And then it's not. I feel like the methods are simple. Again, it's love, it's companionship, it's holding space, helping someone stay safe, especially when there are self-destructive parts, highly suicidal parts. But sometimes we need to have a more intervention. Sometimes we need that psychiatric visit just to keep them safe, which we need a better one. We need one specific.
We need better ones.
Yeah.
Agree.
But it takes a long time, and people don't understand that. To walk with someone through this, it is potentially a lifelong journey.
Yeah, it is.
So as a therapist, if you take someone on, or as a friend with especially abandonment issues of the victim or the survivor, I feel like you need to consciously decide, is this something I can do? Is this something God is calling me to do? And then remember who your strength is, because it'll get really hard. You'll go, I can't do this, but I said I would. So God, you better help me right now. That's how I talk to them all the time. Right now.
I'm going to need you to.
I think also making sure that we can do it well, right?
Yeah.
Because if we can't do something well, then we maybe should.
And I
go
think part of
equip
that
us
is teaching,
first.
it's teaching them and us in the companionship side of things. Say if we're just walking along somebody companionship wise, it's teaching the ebb and flow of relationship. And that does not mean relationship is over, that there can be pauses, there can be times,
Right.
there can be, some relationships truly are just seasonal, and kind of reality checking that.
Yeah.
And working through the grief process of that, and not just abandoning, not just really, this is what we're doing, and taking it and slowing it way down with safe boundaries and safe communication. And that's something that I put out a poll to a lot of my survivors, like, hey, what are your top 5 do's and don'ts? And I got some really cool things. And some of them was up just being honest, just really communicating like that need difference, because it is true that people, when you're walking along someone, sometimes you need to take a break, put that oxygen mask on yourself, take those pauses, and come back in. And that's, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a book I love called Holy Listening. And it really
I've
is
heard of
about,
that book.
it's about just, again, holding space, being in the presence of. Survivors know what they need. They are so smart.
Yeah.
So if we hold space and we brainstorm with them, with each other, it's a collaboration. It's not a, let me tell you the steps. You give me a step and I'm going to just go the other way. It's just,
You're not
Oh, it's gonna
formulating
be-
healing.
I'm oppositional. The collaboration where we need to be in charge. Our lives are out of control. Flashbacks, memory with DID, it feels out of control. We need to be in control of something. If it's our healing journey, and even if it's down to, okay, you need extra help. Do you want me to drive you to the ER, or do you want
Yeah.
me to call the paramedics? And that one's pretty extreme, but do you want me to call your kids, which is one of the ones I get, and I'm like, don't call my kids. Or should I have a friend come sit with you? It's like you just have to collaborate. The survivor needs power. They need to say,
Yep.
this is going to work for me.
Yep.
And if they trust you and understand where you're coming from with some of those interventions or ideas, they'll eventually buy in. But it takes a lot of work to earn that status with someone.
It
From a
does.
support standpoint, so trauma is processed through the 5 senses, and it's reprocessed and healed through the 5 senses. Trauma is created through bad, unsafe relationship. It's healed through safe relationship, which is part of the frustration for them, because they have to do relationship to heal, and that really pisses them off. By then, like me, yeah, like that. I'm not a fan of this level of interdependence that I now have to create, instead of just being dependent and on my own, because that's how I function better. That's really hard.
Exactly.
And I think that's a great transition point. So the next question I want to get us to, and I see this is where the chat is going also, people are really wanting to know this, and I want to do it on 2 sides. What are some of the essential services? So therapeutic modalities, other sorts of elements that need to be in place to serve those who are living with DID and to serve them well. And then what are some of the essential accommodations? Because I know from being in the life of someone who is living with DID regularly, being in her life regularly, that it is more than just what therapeutic modalities is her therapist sitting in. She has special accommodations that she needs to continue to live in a way that is supportive. And so what are some of those?
So from a companionship standpoint, I would say helping to establish what are some sensory safety options with the different whole self, different things at work. It's asking questions every single time. Never touching while asking, can I hug you? Would it be better if I held your hand? Would it be better if I not touch you at all? Is there any safe place that, because contact can be really calming, can you receive contact or not? So that's sensory. Can I make you a cup of tea? Could I make you a cup of coffee? So it's sensory, smell, taste, all the things. Would you like some chocolate? I have a chocolate container. All of my survivors know where the chocolate is. Like, there's things like tangible, just practical things, thinking about, like, when you're dealing with a whole system of different ages of people, think about how you would deal with a 5-year-old instead of a 25-year-old or a 50-year-old. Like, a 5-year-old wants a piece of candy. I have candy available.
What is a 50-year-old?
So yes. And I always have something sensory, smelly in my office or around, things that are calming, things that remind them of me. I have them test it first to see if it triggers anything, like those kind of things. Like I'll have different ones for them to test, and then I'll make sure they have one to go with them. And you can do that as friends. It's when I teach step or parents in a blended families, if a child can take a teddy bear from each house back and forth, then that's a secure space. So when survivors have security between parts and with their safe people, it creates natural grounding.
That note,
Yeah.
if I'm in a flashback or something, I have multiple parts here. Usually it is often helpful for someone to take my hand, because it just, and then tell me, this is who I am, this is where you are, and remind me I have kids. Sometimes I'm like, what? I'm a mother? What? So just the things that are important to me. If they can remind me of what's important to me, that can help me ground and be present. On the therapeutic side, dealing with the reality of self-harm, suicide, like I'm covered in scars. I've attempted more times we can't even count. And sometimes more intensive interventions need to be done. It's not the best word. But if a therapist has an MOU or has a relationship with a psychiatric unit or something like that, that they can say, I'm sending this person, she's agreed to come, or he has agreed, this is the issue. So they can do all of the work prior. So they're not getting there and have to give them all their history. And so they know this is trauma. We just need a safe place for 24 hours. I'm not able to manage this. I feel like a team that is needed to work with people with DID and extreme trauma. It can't fall on one therapist. It can't fall
I'm actually
on
really suspicious of any therapist that doesn't work with a team on some space.
Yeah.
You don't have
Right.
community versus other things. Like you have got a God complex and you're going to hurt yourself in them.
Exactly.
It's
I
dangerous.
agree. I agree with that.
you just the weight is too much for one person.
Yeah.
And
It's a multidisciplinary system. It's a
Yeah.
multidisciplinary outside system that has to work to help.
and then also, this is on the other side of that, the therapists that do the work need support. They
Yes.
need to be able to decompress too. You know how sometimes you love all your kids and you say things to like your spouse that you would never say to your kid just because you freaking need to say it. You need a space for that. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means this
Yeah.
went bad today.
Yeah. Yep.
Or learn how to
Yep.
regulate their own selves. Maybe they're not quite in touch with themselves, and maybe they got triggered and a trauma or an issue came up. And if they can handle that, then they can return and be a support. If they don't handle that, they'll decompose themselves. And then the cycle will start over again. Abandonment. I'm too hard for anyone to help. I'm not lovable. It takes a team.
The
Yeah.
top, just somebody asked about therapy models. The top therapy models that I use are IFS, internal family systems. I have often sent people out for neurofeedback because it's a calming for the brain where they don't have to verbalize. EMDR, they don't always have to verbalize. EMI is another adjunct to EMDR. They don't always have to verbalize. So sometimes because trauma is stored in the nonverbal brain, period. Whether it happened verbally or not, it's stored in the nonverbal brain. It's not here. We bring it there we're bringing it up to process, but it doesn't start here. It's way back here.
Yeah.
And so really, and doing body movement things, going for a run, going for a walk, it's so multifaceted. That's a piece of all of it, is doing that mind, body, spirit piece of it. And how are you managing all of these things from those perspectives? So those are the main ones. I give clients books to read. We walk through workbooks. And it is years. We do this I've been working with several of them for years, and I will continue to work with them. And that is what it is. It is a commitment of love.
It is a commitment of love. We have incorporated those things as well. The one thing that we have a therapist come in and do is also the dialectical behavioral training.
Yes, DBT.
Which is amazing because it really does help show them what you could react versus how you did react. The other thing that is huge, and I'm going to say it's probably one of the greatest pieces of the therapies that we've seen that have really spoken to the women, is the equine therapy or animal assisted therapy.
Yeah, I use the animal.
That part is huge, so much so that with our kids' house, we're getting animals. We actually have them. We have them boarded now, but we are going to incorporate that as a full-time thing for the women. Now, we always contracted out for that. I think more than once a week is much better than once a week, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also, like, I have nonverbal parts. I have parts that never had permission to speak that can. And I'm an artist. And so for me,
Art
you know,
therapy.
like all of the senses, things I can't say, I can show.
Yeah.
And I can either show you in marks on my arm,
Mhm.
or I can show it through a painting. And
Yeah.
so it's like redirecting. Can you do this here? Can you show me what you're feeling? And it might be just scribbles of color. Or theater. Theater is a big one. Writing. Anytime. I've used all my notebooks, even now. Like, I'm so DID still. And it's great. Thank you. But just letting them speak as they need to speak, not censoring it, not changing writing or words, just receiving however they need to express. It can come out in a healthy way, or it can come out in a maladaptive way, but it needs to come out. It's erupting in there. It's been hidden and held down like a pressure cooker. At some point, it's got to come out. And again, if I said everything that ever happened to me, I could literally talk for the rest of my life, and it wouldn't do me any good. So it's getting to the gist of it. The wound. Where's the wound? And honestly, when you get down to it, the wound is your sense of self, that you weren't worthy or enough to be loved, to be taken care of, to be protected. And so showing them that you're there, helping create a safe environment, that's the first thing. Like, they can't really work through stuff if they're not safe to do. Economically, some of the resources that we need, I don't have any money. I don't know a lot of people who have DID that can only work part-time sometimes,
Yeah.
that are
Right.
financially. So there's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of kind of just regurgitating some of the world that you came from. It's like you're trapped in it. You can't really get out of it. So some of those financial resources are important, making sure someone can access their therapist, because insurance only goes so far. Nonprofits can only do so much. So that could be a legislation thing. Mental health needs. There are just a lot of physical things that are so important. And like me, I'm paying a lot of money that I don't really have to live where I am. So I'm not living in triggers. Like, if I lived where I could afford, I'd be a mess, because I'd be living in the same environment that abused me, and that would not help me.
No.
So it's just being aware of
Yeah.
those types of things. If they're not safe, they can't heal. They
Yeah, and
can't
therapists really need to be multifaceted in the things that they can do. And if they can't be, they need to add other adjunct things to that. Like, I do play therapy with my adult DID clients. We will go into the playroom with the little ones, and you treat. And so that's one thing people think. One of the things that's hard to get your brain around a little bit, I think sometimes when you're an adult talking to an adult, is, okay, the one inside right now, or the space that's in there, is little. And so instead of talking to them like an adult, that place, my natural being goes little. And like, there's that space that they need to be met in that space. So I'm not talking to a 50-year-old. I am talking to a 5-year-old that is terrified and scared and nervous about what's in my room. And why am I in this office? And so now they're in the grown-up office. Okay, let's go to the little office. I have a smaller one. That's really cool. So having multiple resources and really thinking outside the box, and let's go for a walk, because walking is natural EMDR. You don't even have to do the EMDR process if you go walk and talk about it. There's so many things that you can do. And horses, like going back to the horse thing, my very first DID was a teenager, and we had taken her to an equine thing, and the horse saw the trigger before I did and started walking and started moving her. And so the horse just was like, okay, here it comes. And because the horse could feel it.
I love that.
And so there's just things that when you start to see it, it's such a freaking miracle. Your brain's, what? And I can't make this stuff.
Yes.
You have to be adaptable. And
Yeah.
we're asking that from survivors, right? We're asking them to be in a space that's unfamiliar, to work with someone they don't know, and they're not there because they want to be. They're not, oh, I should go to therapy. They probably hit some crisis point that's mandated that, or death, or continued abuse. So something has mandated this relationship. And if we're asking them to show up and be adaptable and work with us, we need to do the same. And it's, as far as not sitting in a chair and, okay, let's talk. Oh, I'll never do that. That's boring. But just getting in that creative space. Again, it's a really creative mind that became DID, that had that ability. So it's creativity and a lot of things, a lot of science, a lot of things that are concrete as well, but in a creative way that help. And so there are boundaries, there are lines that can't be crossed, but cross as many as you can, as long as it's safe. It's a different world to work with someone with DID. It just is. You cannot follow the same rules. You just can't. It's not an in out of the office thing.
Yeah. This has been wonderful. Julie, do you have anything to add on that point before I transition us to Q&A?
No, I have a lot just going through my head. I have this going on in my head right now. It's just a lot. And I'm actually taking notes on things that maybe I didn't know that now I do. Yay. And you go ahead. Yeah. You're fine.
Yeah. And a reminder, because I have been soaking things up as well. And I've seen Kimberly taking notes, and just, I think everyone is learning quite a lot. This will be, our panelists agreed to have this session recorded so that you all could use this as a resource for yourselves if you want to go back and missed anything. So you will be able to do that. So that's excellent. But I'm going to transition us over to the question and answer, and I'm going to pick out some of the questions. Maybe we'll have time for all of them. Maybe we'll have to get some of them after the fact and email them out to you. But what are some of the ones that, I'm going to look at some of the ones that maybe are more broad, that might apply to everyone. And I think we covered this a little bit, but maybe we could touch on it quickly. There's a question there from Bailey, and Evelyn actually just asked almost the exact same question in the chat. So how do we help someone when they are actively disassociating in the session, is what Evelyn asked. And Bailey asked, so how are we appropriately supporting clients when they're like actively dissociating and another self presents? Like when you're there for that switch, what is the best way to support them? And I know, Kimberly, you mentioned a few of these things already that have worked for you, but
I'm just wondering if the therapist would like to answer.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Tell me.
Yeah, in session or otherwise, actually, I would typically go, hey, I noticed that that something's shifting and changing. Would you like to talk about that? So the first thing is like inviting, is that even something you want approached? Or do we need to do something else now? And I'm especially if there's a transition to something smaller, someone smaller, I definitely want to check in and make sure. And I do not ever send out a child from my office. Like children aren't supposed to drive, for example. The brain where that child is stored doesn't know how to.
Interesting. I guess I never would have thought of that. I wouldn't have thought of that.
And so we could have some rules, like an adult or at least a teenage self that has driven needs to come out to be able to drive somewhere. So we need to, and so I've had plenty that have sat in my waiting room for a little while, just collect yourself, like center in, that kind of, and at different times so obviously I'm a therapist, so I am on a time crunch sometimes, and I'll go back in and check on them, and occasionally, okay, where you're at, did you feel safe enough to drive? It's okay to not just hop in the car and drive. There are times when they might need somebody to come pick them up. They might need a support person. And I'm an extremely independent human in general, like, and a lot of survivors are. But when I really had to do this deep work, my husband went with me to every session, and it made me feel so little at first and so helpless. And at the same time, it healed our marriage. And so he was able to be present in a way that he had never been before. And it was so securing to us. He didn't say anything. He was just there. He was just there as my person. And
that's
so
important.
Just having a person or having an animal, like I let survivors bring their support animals into my office. I had a support cat for a while. She got tired of that. So she's an at-home support cat. But there's ways that you can enter that. I have a relationship with a local farm. Sometimes we'll go out and just be where the horses are. We don't even do equine therapy. We're just there. I mean, we can do it, but sometimes just being in the presence of animals is just, By the way, the electromagnetic field for a horse is an acre.
The what?
The electromagnetic field for a horse is a whole acre.
Really?
Yeah, they sense so much from it, you know.
Another thing, if you guys want to look up Nicobom, they have a lot of kind of free lectures, and it's in the deep work of dissociation. And their recommendation is if you see the split or that dissociation start, just stop. Don't proceed with your agenda or whatever. Just, hey, I noticed.
What was that, Kimberly?
NIC ABM.
ABM?
Yeah.
NIC ABM.
Oh.
It's like
And I
Bessel van der Kolk.
I never remember that. I didn't know what the
okay, I know
word
who they, okay, yeah,
But
dice,
a
but
lot of it is that sensory. Again, the sensory is so the calming, help me. Let's take a look around the room. What are 5 things? And that sounds so ridiculous sometimes but it's so grounding. Like people don't realize and getting people simple things like when we're nervous, we tap one foot, getting them to tap back and forth slowly creates that bilateral and helps the body settle a little bit. Smelling something,
Like you
tasting.
breathing.
Yeah, breathing,
Like
exactly.
if you tell me to breathe, I'm not gonna breathe.
Yeah.
I'm
So
not
what I do actually, I was like, breathe with me.
Breathe.
Can you breathe with me? And so I do but attachment is one of my things that I do. One, because I have reactive attachment disorder, because that's what happens with trauma. But I adopted 2 children who then I had to work on that. So it's and so sometimes if they'll allow me to touch, I will sit across from them and go, put your hands in my hand if you're okay with that. Now let's just breathe together. You just follow my breathing. And so it's co-regulation.
Yeah,
It's
that
giving
one
them the
is
thing they weren't given when they were little.
yeah. That is how you learn. Like when you are growing up, that's why moms hold babies that are crying. They can hear their heart. They feel that gentle rock, hopefully. But yeah, so in that, what you were just saying, there are senses like you're breathing, you're touching, you're like all of those senses are engaged. If someone tells me to look and name, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to play. I'm such a bad patient. But
No. I think different. We would just find out what worked for you. So it's not that you're a bad patient, it's that you need different things than other people do.
But like my therapist will just, and I hear it and I breathe.
Yeah.
So it's not even, he's telling me, but it's, oh yeah, I need to breathe. And just noticing it and not being offended, because someone really nice might be there and then something got triggered and they're telling you to F off, like I did the other day, to some really sweet people, and just trying not to be offended. What happened? You know what?
Yeah, one of my rules is if you don't like the fuck word, don't work with trauma survivors.
There you go. If you can't have the spares.
You need to desensitize yourself so quickly to any cursing.
Well, I was in church too. So.
Desensitize.
that is very true.
That it's extremely true, especially
Yeah.
not going to work with teenagers with trauma. So, Julie,
I tell people doing anti-work in general is like standing at the mouth of hell saying, fuck you, Satan.
Yeah.
So if you think you're not going to get waylaid from that, you better think again. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
there are times that I've gone in to lead groups, things that certain organizations really have rules for their residents and especially for the staff of no cursing. And there have been times that I have had to just stop and everyone's wondering, I'm leading a group and they're, why is he stopping? Why is it getting awkward? And I've had to just say, I'm trying to find a way to say this without cussing. So you're going to need to give me a minute because there are times when you're talking about certain things that it just seems the right way. But Julie, I have a question for you because I think that this question you could be able to answer probably with the most assurance. What are some suggestions for working with people who have DID in residential settings, especially how it relates to the other residents?
That's really a big question. So I would say some of you might know this, some of you may not, but I would say over the last 2.5 years, half of the women that have come to our program have suffered from DID at least, and SRA. I would say what we have done is we have asked for the individuals, they all have journals. So what we've asked them to do is when they feel those parts coming is ask them if they are able to, if they can journal as those parts. And by journaling as those parts, they're keeping this journal we were reading something about how it has helped them actually heal in those areas of those parts, if that makes any sense. But so that has been helpful for us. It's also been really helpful, like I was mentioning, that we give them their time, their privacy, their listen. And when we are listening to them and we are not poking and prodding and we are not asking questions that aren't our business, we find that person also then starts to build trust with us. But what can happen in that situation is the other residents will feel like you're favoring her, you're favoring this person, and you're not doing that for me. But what don't understand if they don't have DID, but they have the other pieces, the borderline disorder things. They don't understand that sometimes there's a piece that you need to do for the DID that you don't need to do for everyone else. And it's been difficult at times because it has created a wedge between girls in the home because they do think that there's a favoritism, but it's not a favoritism. We have to explain and talk with them. And it's been an issue. And even so much that I told you about this recently. We had a girl who would just constantly bang, or she'd become a different part and she'd constantly bang her head on the wall, just constantly banging her head on the wall. And it was very difficult because it took basically away from what they were doing with the other girls in the house. And they had to go tend to that a lot. And so the other ones got jealous. And it was at a point where I was like, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do with her. And unfortunately, in the state of Nebraska, there are very little resources for DID and SRA. There's really nothing. We actually had the Wellspring therapists through Salvation Army ask us to train them on SRA and DID, which kind of blew my mind. But that's part of the problem that we have here. And I think I see that as a bigger problem is sometimes that person who's banging their head against the wall as a part and then carries around their doll as another part and all of that, it has created chaos in the home and it has affected the home in a negative way. And our staff has done the best that they can with the knowledge that we have, but we also can learn even more, which is why I would love, Kimberly, for you to come do a training. And even if you could come do a training, Michelle, we would love to set up this would be absolutely fabulous. This is needed in our home. And I know it's needed in other homes because I've talked to other homes, but I hope that answers your question. I went off on a little rabbit trail there, but hoping to explain that this does create issues in the home. We just need to know how to handle them the best we can for everybody we're helping.
One of the things that I've found is, especially if there's DID and SRA, it's tough to have more than 2 or 4 together because they trigger each other. Yes. And even with human trafficking, and which a lot of this is from, it's hierarchy, it's who's favored. So those are all things that have to be special to not be hurt as much or to be cared for. And so needing to be special is very important. And so there's that combat. And even if they're not aware of it or malicious, they are innately afraid they will not be taken care of or loved if they're not the most important. And the way that can resolve is a lot of time and seeing that other people can be loved and you can be loved at the same time. But I'll tell you what, I'm 52 and I'm still working on that. I love, I serve, I give. And that's another thing, like helping them find purpose, like using this gift that you have.
Without saying that this happened to you so you could help other people.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Yes. Or, okay, another thing is, I know exactly.
For trauma in general.
I know exactly how you feel. Don't ever
No, you don't.
So it's going to be tricky to impossible. So roommates, I would say no roommates. No way. At least separate rooms. So they can.
For DID.
Yeah, for DID and SRA. And then if there are multiple homes, small little like homes, even better. But that's something that takes a lot of intention.
I like a foster care model. Like I wish my heart would be that we could get to more of that smaller, almost a foster care model thing where people are raising up adults that aren't really adults, helping them grow into adulthood.
You know what? I spoke with someone last week who's done that with adults. I lived with multiple families and I knew I was in training when I was with them. They weren't perfect, but I'm like, oh, you guys can fight and be mad at each other and not beat each other up. And you're all at dinner and okay. So having host families that can do that, that is next level. I feel like that is something that would save so many lives. I think, gosh, I want to say Bruce Perry worked with some people with a mom and a baby that a host family helped. And because if you don't learn the skills, where are you going to learn them? And yeah, so there's the aftercare home, there's the homes. Next level would be like a foster. But then
It's reparenting. So much of it is reparenting.
yeah,
And it's having people around them and a crew of people to help reparent, and then teaching them the internal family system side of reparenting self and caring for the inside selves.
and then supporting them and making sure they understand, if you say yes, please be aware this might be the rest of your life, and hopefully you'll want it to be, because if you reparent them and then abandon them, that's gonna really break it apart.
Don't ever make a promise you can't keep.
Yep. All right,
Yep.
ladies. Well, we are at time.
It's therapeutic to be welcomed into this conversation after all that we've all been through.
We love to hear your voices, and I'm grateful that so much of the industry is seeing this as a need now and is looking to you all as experts. And I just hope that continues, and so that we continue to just serve people in the best possible way that we can, because I know that's in the end what we all want to do. So
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, you too. Thanks, everyone.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.